morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on tourist development tax grants and our reimbursement requests. I'm John Melicky, I'm the Arts and Culture Manager, and we're glad that you're here. As we start this program, please know that this is being recorded. It will be available on our website, and also I will be sending the slides to everyone that has attended. So I appreciate your time and patience as we develop this new online system for the reimbursement requests for the tourism grants for this fiscal year for 2023 and 24. Our objectives today, first is we're going to describe the organizational information for the financial reports. And second, we're going to create the summary of the financial reports and the summary page that you normally know. Third, we're going to go into some of the details of the reimbursement requests and what is being done. Fourth, we'll look at the details of the reimbursement requests for the various types of reimbursements, whether that's check, ACH, credit cards, bill.com, payment systems, or international wire transfers. Finally, then we'll understand the timeframes for the financial reports. So our first thing we're going to do is talk about logging in. And to make this a little bit easier, we're going to go right into the system. I'm going to go through it as you would as you enter the system so that you understand this. All the slides moving forward will have screenshots for you. So as you see those, you can follow this with the screenshots. But for this webinar, we thought it would be good to share the screens. So as you can see, we're here with our website page, which is paradisecoast.com. And again, you go to industry resources and choose partners. Once that occurs, you're going to scroll down and you can see this has been updated. And we have now our arts and cultural resources here. I'm going to choose that. And our arts and culture page has some of our updates and information for you, information on Arte Viva, and then also down to the arts and culture grants. So you're going to choose that box. When you go to the grants, then you're going to log into the grant application system. This is the same system that you came in with applications. So I'm going to choose the grant application system. And it's going to bring me to my login. This has changed slightly a little bit. All of now the tabs here at the top, there's additional resources. They're all listed here that you can find out information in the resources. In the past, that was all across this on the top, but now it's in this file for you. So I'm going to log in. And again, the login is here. And I'm going to press that. And it's going to bring in my login information and my password. Now, some of you, when you entered the grant, you have a login. If your accounting person is going to be entering this information, they need to use this username and password that you did the application under. So remember that as well. Another option is to have the person that is doing your accounting gather all the information, and you just upload it. That is up to you, and that's based on what you do at your organization. So I enter my username and login and press login. Once I press login, it has this page. And as you will see, it has the category of the grants that you were in and that you entered. What we want to do though, this is a whole new category and section that will be here. As you can see, it's down here in financial check-ins. The first time for you to see this, however, you need to go to add invite only password. The password for this is finance. So I type in finance and press OK. Once that happens, as I scroll down, then I can see my application. Like the other sections, this tells you the dates and deadlines and when the final submission is. And we'll talk a little bit about that more at the end. We have 4 times that these will be available. The first one is open now and goes through February 15th at 5 o'clock. Since I've been in this, I'm choosing edit. The first time you're going to choose to start the application process. So I press the edit button and I go to my page. This has changed a little bit as well. There's now on the left-hand side a table of contents that really allows you to move from the 4 sections of your financial reporting. One is general report information. Second will be the vendor expense summary. Third will be the detailed vendor expense information. And then finally, the submission page. So first is the report information, which is here. You're going to enter your organization name, the project name. And this is, again, the project that was based on the project that you included in your application. Then we're going to choose grant category. And there you're going to select one of your 2 categories, whichever one you're in, whether you're a category B for your marketing grant or C for a non-county museum grant. Then you're going to enter the project event opening date, which will be the date that your project started. Then you're going to need to enter your purchase order, and this is a required field. Now, one thing with all of these, there is this I button. If you click on that, it gives you more information that allows you to get more detail of what we're asking for. So use that because it is going to help you in a lot of instances. So you're going to enter your purchase order number. If you have not received your purchase order yet from myself, please let me know. And that is something that we will follow up and get you that because it is required for you to turn this in. Then the contract information, that's the amount of the contract on the purchase order. So what was the amount of your grant for the year? Then we need a contact person, your name and your email and your phone number. Then is the information of the request. When does this request period start and when does it end? The great thing with this, you can kind of choose based on a calendar, you can type it in. So if we're starting this request period today, I'm going to enter today's date. And this end period is going to be the last date I enter an invoice. So let's say my last invoice is February 1st. I'm going to go down and choose February 1st as my date. This is important for you because then with the second and third and fourth reports, it allows you to kind of plan out when your invoices are being recorded and reported into us that you want reimbursement for. Report type, whether it's interim and final, the fourth one will need to be final. So in that fourth quarter of when we have the grants out there, that will always be a final grant. And we'll go through the dates at the end. Then also is your report request number. And you select either 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on which one you're doing. Since I'm entering my first one, it's going to be a 1. A lot of you in the past have included financial spreadsheets and information. That's something that you can upload here. Again, you just click on this button and upload a file. You also want to, after every page at the bottom of the page is the Save Work button. Always press that, because if you don't, it will not save information. The good thing with this is that required fields will show that's what's missing and what I need to fill in. Moving on to the second section, that's the vendor expense summary. So this, we made it a simple process. We tried to, and make it a table for you. So this now has 3 areas and there's 20 fields. So you can list up to 20 different vendors that you want to get reimbursed for this report. First, you're going to enter the vendor name in. So I enter the first vendor name, and I know I have my invoice for $1,000. And then the invoice total is 1,000 is there. So I'm going to enter that in as well. I then have a second vendor called vendor 2. That request is $500 and my invoice is $500. So I'm entering into those fields. Now my third vendor, I have $5,000 as the request, but that invoice is actually $10,000. So what we want is to have you enter the invoice total for 10,000 here. That way we kind of know, that there's not an error or that there's something missing. And that also gives you a clue to make sure that the reimbursement request is the correct invoice and that the totals all match. The great thing is now we aren't going to request you to do the calculations because the system calculates it for you down here at the bottom. So you add all that you want to 1 through 20. As we go into the expense information, I would recommend that you add another tab, open another instance, and do the expense information and this expense summary at the same time. That way, as you're entering the expense totals, you know what your summary is. So let's go and look at that detailed expense information. So on this gives detailed information on your expenses that you're including. It's going to be your vendor information. It's going to be the invoice information, and then also other items that you may want to include. So first, you're going to include your vendor name. So our first vendor was vendor 1. We now have this certification on this that you're certifying this vendor is not an employee of the organization, nor related to an employee of the organization, and that proper vetting of bids was completed. This is a required field, and this is, again, a reminder that your reimbursement requests, there are certain requirements for those. This is just a double check to make sure that, yes, you understand that. I can also go in and look under additional resources, click on financial guidelines, and see what the guidelines are, but what's valid and what's non-allowable use of funds. Again, all here, all easy for you to take care of. So going back into my form, I'm now in my expense information. So again, I enter my vendor name in first. I certify that that's correct. The amount of expense I want to be reimbursed, we said that was $1,000 from the summary page before. And then the description. So what was this expense for? So this was for advertising campaign with Naples News. Then I'm going to mark the type of expense, whether it's marketing or exhibition. Because I know it's marketing, I'm going to choose this. And what this does, it then adds this section down here for advertising information, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. I enter my invoice number onto this page. And again, this should be a number that matches the invoice. The date of the invoice. We know that the invoice came in on December 1st, and then a copy of the invoice gets uploaded. Next is all the payment information. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then if there's any other financial information with this invoice, you can upload it here. This is not a required field, but it's just a way for you to upload information. And again, with the advertisements, I can upload the advertisement right here and the proof of performance. Now, one thing to remember with all of these financial information, and as you enter these expenses, that the payment has to be in, that everything needs to be all cleared, and especially with the payment type, because our next section is going to ask you what those payment types are and what it is. So let's say it's a check. If it's a check, then another section pops up with information. First, we have a reference documents. So we have a check example. I can click on that and it brings up a checklist for you and information of what you should be looking for with checks. It's required to enter the check number. And then we need to upload the check stub. So the check stub actually has that invoice information. And again, I can look on my information tab that the check stub must reference the invoice number and the amount must match the invoice. If multiple invoices are paid with one stub, then you must identify which one that's for reimbursement. You can do that by a highlight or circling it on your stub or marking a note on it before you do the upload. And again, all uploads need to be PDFs. So I enter the check stub. Now also, the check stub should have the check number on it. So that should be typed on it. It can be in your memo field, it can be on the check stub. And again, that's just referencing that we know it's that right invoice and it's not, and it's match, and that check is matching. What we don't want is the check number or that reference being written in. On your invoice, it's great to also put it on there. Not written in. If you can get a paid one, it's better. Or if you can type it in, that would be great. So once we have the check stub, then it's also a copy of the clear check. It should be both sides of the check. And again, what are those hints here? That the invoice number should be typed on the front of the face of the check in the memo field. The amount needs to tie to the invoice and should match exactly. If the check is paying something that's not a part of the grant, then type that information onto the PDF or add it in the Excel sheet or report so that we know what's going on. You can run a report from your finance system that shows the breakout of the checks. And again, the more information, the better, so that as this goes through the process of being approved, that it's allowed. So that's all the information for checks. Let's say you do an ACH. And again, I have my ACH example up here, again, with the checklist. That's easy for you. First, we just want your bank statement copy, and that's an upload of the bank statement showing the payment. Now, there's some tricks to bank statements. If your bank statement has the bank logo, your organization's name on every page, then you only need to show the page pertaining to the expense. If it's not, then we need the first page and then the page of the bank statement that refers to it. To make it easier, highlight the reimbursement that you're including and that you're submitting. That makes it easier for people to find. Also remember, with bank statements and other information, to mark out or black out information that is private that you don't want to be shared with everyone. And that is fine. So you're going to upload your bank statement copy and then the payment information. And this either shows the credit card payment, paying the ACH, or how the ACH was paid. A lot of you use a payment system, and many of you use bill.com. So there's a couple of fields and a couple of backups that's required for your bill.com. First is a copy of the bill.com statement that shows the tracking of the payment. It should show the tracking that it was cashed by the vendor. Just having the page without all of the tracking completed is not sufficient. We need to show that tracking report that every stage is done and cleared and that the check cleared the bank. That way, that statement, it's a great statement that bill.com uses to then show the whole process. Other reports that then are required for bill.com can be uploaded here in this under reports. Usually that is the tracking of the check, showing that it was cashed by the vendor. Two reports that people have used that we found last year were very sufficient, whereas the vendor detail report and the fund transfer detail report. And then finally is your deposit information. This is the deposit you make into bill.com to show where it came from and that the money was in there to pay the checks. Again, if I press this information button, it gives more detail of what we're looking for. Another fourth type of payment is your credit card. Again, we show the credit card example with the reference. We want your expense statement, uploading the credit card statement with the charge shown and highlighted. And then the payment of the credit card, and that's a PDF of the statement showing that the payment was made. If, for instance, let's say the credit card was the statement from December and you pay it in January, then we need to see the January statement showing that the payment was made for it in full. A couple of things with credit cards, because sometimes it takes you 60, 90 days to pay off the credit card. The balance should be paid in full no later than 90 days. And what we need to see then are the 3 statements of that credit card. Another option is that if, let's say your charge is $1,000, the credit card statement is $10,000. If you pay $1,000 in that first 30 days, that would be sufficient enough. Again, it's showing how the payment was made, and then how it was paid and gone through your system, that the finance was indeed paid. Fourth area is wire transfers. So wire transfers first, there's the report from the bank that is required as well. The report from the bank should include the detailed information that shows the date and time of transfer, the vendor number, and the exchange rate if it's applicable. If you're sending money out to Europe or outside of the United States, that exchange rate is required. That information is needed as part of this. And it needs to be at the time of transfer to show the wire transfer. The wire transfer payment information then is the second piece of information that we need. That is the documentation that shows the deduction of your wire transfer. It can be a separate receipt from your bank. It can be on your bank statement. And again, it's the first and last page of the transfer. There are a couple of questions. First is the upload of files. Upload of files needs to be in a PDF. That works best with the system. It can be a PDF, whether even from your phone, but PDFs work through the system the best. We have found there's issues in Word documents, JPEGs, and also Excel sheets. Of 20, the second question, if there's more than 20 vendor invoices, we have not gone into that, and we haven't had that problem. If we had that, we can definitely increase it, but we're going to start at 20. So this detailed information, this was just the first expense that we just went through and all the different types. As you finish this, you can save your work. Up here at the top is what's called the custom narrative settings. What's great about this is that this allows you and tells you how many answer sets you provided. So this is how you know that you've done your first invoice, and then you move to your second invoice and your third invoice. By having the system do this, these are what's called the custom narratives. So your first invoice would be your custom narrative 1. The second invoice is custom narrative 2. And you can't exceed 20 answer sets for the page. So then you enter all of the 20. And what you want to do is also then check against your expense summary. Again, save your work with the first one. You can see that answer set 1 has been saved, and now I'm working on answer set 2. I can go back to answer set 1 here, or just move on to answer set 2. And if I need to, I can go back and forth and check, or if I have the tab open here at the top, I can go back and forth and enter it and look at the tabs. When I'm done, I go to my submission page. What this does, it tells me items I'm missing or tells me it's ready to go, and then you must press submit. Without pressing the submit, the report is not submitted to our office. So those are the 4 areas of this report in the system. Before we move on to some final options and questions, does anyone have any other questions? We answered the ones in the chat so far, but if there's any other at this time, we can go ahead and take those. Not, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoints. And again, all of this is in the PowerPoint as well as we go to details. But let's talk about submission and other information. Again, with the submission, review your work and then press submit. If something is required, if something required is missing, it will show. Once you submit, you cannot make any changes. You will then receive an email confirming that we've received it. If there's any questions, then we will follow up with the email and confirm. So let's talk about dates. And again, the reports are done in 4 sections so that there's a continuous report for you to work on. The first report is open now and is due by February 15th at 5 p.m. At that time, Financial One report will close. So what you need to do is to make sure that you have any information saved, because the great thing about this now, you can go in, you can work on it. You don't have to submit it. You can work on it some more and then submit it when you're ready. But by February 15th at 5 o'clock, this will shut down. So you need to submit anything you have then. And next morning, Financial Report 2 will open. That will run and be open through April 15th. Financial Report 3 will open on April 16th and close on July 15th. And then the final report will open on July 16th and close on September 6th. And again, that last one will be your final report. And again, for each of these periods, you can only submit 1 report. So let's go through some hints. We went through a lot quickly, but here are some helpful hints to kind of have you work through the process. First, you want to make sure all of the documents block out any personal information, such as account numbers or details not pertinent to the expense. Also highlight the expense that you're showing that you want the reimbursement for, because that helps everyone check the information. As you can see, the system now has that table of contents on the left-hand side and allows you to move from section to section. But make sure you always save your work, because if you don't, it will get lost if you move from section to section or the different tabs. Press the I button for information and hints. All uploads should be a PDF in the documentation, because that makes it easier. And again, a lot of days now, especially with Word, you can save it as a PDF. In Excel, there's an Excel sheet. You can save it as a PDF and then just update that and send it to us that way. Open in 2 separate tabs your summary and your details so that the information can be entered at the same time and you're working on those 2 screens simultaneously. Click on reference documents for examples. That shows examples and really what we're looking for. For all the payments, you need to show, and this is just basic for everything. There was income to make the payment. The payment was processed through the system and the payment was cashed by the vendor. That's really what we're looking for in each of those steps. Oh, again, always save your work at the bottom of each page. The deadlines are set by the computer. If the deadline is not missed and you don't submit, your unsubmitted work will be lost. And once you submit once in a cycle, you have to wait till the next cycle to submit. So what happens after you submit? The process happens is then I review it first for anything missing. I then send it to our tourism operations team and they review it as well. If there's any questions in each of those 2 steps, we will email you. Once those pass us, it'll go to the clerk's office for review and processing. Now, so you can receive the check from the county either by ACH or getting a check sent to you. ACS is the fastest way to receive reimbursement. If you want more information on ACS, let me know. And my email's on the next slide. Send me an email. We can send you that information to get set up. Because usually what happens, the ACS is in your account in a day or two after the clerk's office processes it. If it's a check, it's going to be sent to the address on your PO. So check your PO that it's the correct address. And checks take 3 to 7 business days for you to receive. And of course, that is, you're also working with the mail system, which then can require other things as well and delays. Any questions, again, in these various steps will be done through email. Responses then can be sent back to us by email. Because again, once everything is done and submitted once, you can't resubmit. So we'll do an email process to ask for any updates, any updated documents, will all be done by email. And what we try to do when we look at things, we try to have and anticipate any questions prior to it goes to the clerk's office so that that process can happen quickly and easily for you. We're getting good at trying to figure out things before it goes to the clerk's office. We haven't had very many things get kicked back in the past year, and we hope to continue that as well. So I want to say thank you again for being a part of the grant process. We really appreciate it. We know you all are working hard and doing a lot to build the arts and culture here in Collier County. My phone number is there along with my email. And if you have any questions, you can do that. Before we go, we'll see if there's any other questions. There's one about certificates of insurance. Those, we have the current ones up to date. We are now tracking those. And as we need those, we are trying to reach out to you ahead of time. In order for any check to be processed, that your certificate of insurance and your workers' comp have to be current during that process. So this is an ongoing item that we're going to be dealing with each of you as we go throughout the year. So that's why it's important to keep those up to date. We're good. I think the next big round is either March or June. And then, of course, as we get to the end of the fiscal year in September, that's when a lot of people are due. And we really want to keep up on that so that the checks can be processed at a good time. And again, everything is due now. The last one is due by September 6th, so that then everything can be paid by the end of our fiscal year, which is the end of September. Are there any other questions? Well, seeing none, I want to thank you. Again, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions or have any questions going through this process. The help screens in GoSmart are great. We will be working on the final reports next, and we'll be doing a seminar on that. We hope to have that up and running by the end of the month, as well as the next grant cycle. So get ready for the next fiscal year for the grant program as well. And more information will be following over the next couple of weeks with that. So thank you again. We appreciate you being here and taking the time, and have a great day.